All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Hot Path Show, episode 59. I'm Johnny, today joined in by TJ, the developer of Tabletop Tavern. Welcome in, TJ. I'm very excited to have you on here today.
No, super excited to be here. I've been following your channel for a good little while, and it's been super helpful in helping me build this game. So I'm honored to be here.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're definitely going to get into your game a whole lot more later on in the show, but just at the top, real quick, I just wanted to give you a massive congratulations. I mean, you did it, dude. You have such an awesome, smash hit with this game, solo developed game. Couldn't be happier for you to see the journey that this game has been on, and all your success with it. So super cool to see that. So just wanted to give you your congratulations at the beginning of this year.
Well, thank you.
And yeah, it looks like we got some people in the chat, and welcome in everybody. Glad to all have you here. So yeah, TJ, he made the game Tabletop Tavern. One thing really cool that he did with this game is he open sourced all of the code. So in the description of this video, I have a link to the game Tabletop Tavern as well as the source code, which he has generously shared with everybody. And so that's kind of what we're going to be going into today is like, how he actually built a lot of this stuff. And he kind of is using dots and ECS for a lot of the battles. And as we get into, showcasing, what this game is, I think a lot of you will see why it makes sense to use, dots and ECS for a game like this. But yeah, I think before we kind of get into Tabletop Tavern, I just kind of want to get a little bit of background on you, TJ, kind of like how you got into game development. Did you kind of like study any type of like programming or any other kind of like arts related to game development kind of, earlier on in your career, and kind of how did you get into game development in general? How did that all kind of come to be?
Yeah, so I graduated from college with a degree in cybersecurity, actually. Um, did hardly any like real in-depth coding until my first job. I was working as just a software engineer, and felt it was incredibly boring and needed to do something a little bit more creative. So I found some resources on YouTube. I think I probably saw like some of like the old Danny videos from way back in the day. Like slowly just started learning it on my own, and eventually got a job as a Unity software programmer for a game studio. Did that for a little while, and I've been working in Unity for about 6 or so years right now. Now I'm doing it at my full-time day job, and just enjoying the game dev on the side.
Yeah, awesome. And so how did your YouTube channel come to be? Because you have a YouTube channel, and actually probably should update the description with your YouTube channel as well, because I know you post videos from time to time, kind of about your game dev journey, and everything like that. So how did like what kind of prompted you to start the channel, and yeah, how's that kind of been?
So funny enough, what actually got me starting the channel was wanting to like, grow a bigger YouTube subscriber base. And a lot of the channels that I followed at the time, like Danny again, Bargy, some of these YouTube game devs, um, they were I kind of liked like the community they built around it and how fun it looked to showcase the game they were working on. And I really enjoyed watching that content. Um, However, I'm actually kind of put the YouTube channel on the back burner to focus on the game. And now the YouTube channel is more of a marketing avenue towards showcasing new updates or new trailers or new features that I'm working on. So it's kind of in the background right now. I will say it's very difficult to make a successful game, and it's very difficult to be a YouTuber, as you very well know. So to try to do both at the same time was a little bit too much for me. So right now the focus is more on being a game dev while still uploading to that channel every few months just to try to keep it rolling.
Well, yeah, and I was gonna say, not only are you, working on this game and everything, and potentially trying to make YouTube videos, but also you are working a full-time job already. So it is a lot of things. And at some point it's like,
Yeah.
all right, at some point, maybe you can't do everything, right?
Yeah, you gotta at some point focus in on one thing if you want to do it really, really well. Um, you can't. There's a million options in life, and there's nothing wrong with trying out a few different ones. But if you really want to excel at one thing, I think you need to make it your sole focus.
Yeah, yeah, kind of really gotta go deep on that one thing. Um, so I kinda wanna talk about, your previous game real quick first. So it's, Castles on the Cloud, is that what it's called, right?
Yep. Yep.
And so that's your first commercial, like, solo developed game, right?
Correct. That was. I spent about 7 months on it. Learned a lot working on it. Didn't use any ECS for that one, but I'd say the main thing that I learned from that is that you can make a good game, and the problem is that there's a lot of good games, and there's also a lot of great games, and it's very hard to market a good game because you're not just competing with similar games on Steam. You're competing with YouTube for people's attention. You're competing with TikTok. You're competing with Netflix, and
Totally.
it's like after I come home from a long day at work, am I going to spend $5 or $10 to play a game? Or am I just gonna, boot up Slay the Spire and run that again? So um, I learned a lot from that process, and a lot of advice that's given out to indie devs is to complete a game and release it. And I still 100% agree with that advice. But the biggest thing that I learned from that is that making a good game is not good enough to have it maybe have the success that you might be looking for.
Mm, yeah, that's a interesting insight because I think if I remember correctly, I think I saw like some of your devlogs for that game did pretty well. Like you got some pretty good numbers on some things for that
I
related to that game, right?
Yeah, I did. I think one of the first devlogs I did got like 60,000 views or something like that.
Yeah, that's
And
pretty awesome.
yeah, and it's nice. I will say though that when you're creating content on YouTube that is kind of game dev or if it's geared towards game developers, you may get a lot of positive feedback, but that doesn't always translate directly to sales.
This is true. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so like, as much as I'm still trying to keep the channel running, I've realized a lot throughout the process that you have to go where the gamers are, and building you can't force people to consume. And no matter how many like devs in your comments are saying, oh, this looks great, oh, this looks really cool, or no matter how many like likes you get on a tweet, that doesn't always correlate with the underlying success of the game. So as important as it is to put out what you're working on, I think it's equally important to look at what games are doing well on Steam. Like the what's a big one that's blown up recently, like the Mecha Chameleon one.
Yeah, yeah.
um, that's done phenomenal. It's got how many million
Yeah, I
sales?
think I actually saw that it is the best-selling game of the year,
Yeah, yeah, and
which
like
is just
was
so
that dev like,
insane.
yeah, he built something that people wanted,
Yeah,
and that's what's primarily important. Maybe he didn't upload devlogs monthly to try to grow his subscriber base, but he built something that what people wanted. And my goal was to the one thing I was obsessed with was being a successful indie dev. So I tried to focus a little bit more on what people actually want to play. I was pretty specific in this niche that I picked because I felt like nothing quite fit there, and it was a very difficult project that without ECS wouldn't have been possible. So I'm very thankful for the success, and all the player feedback has probably been the biggest thing. It's crazy. In like my Discord, there's people every single day making suggestions and feedback. And I've learned that if you just listen to the players and build what they want, it will attract more.
that's awesome. Well, yeah, I mean, I think now would probably be a good place to kind of start talking more about Tabletop Tavern. So, just to give people some context, I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of play the trailer for people real quick. And they should be able to as well here.
How can I help you?
Awesome. So cool. So yeah, I mean, like, let's kind of talk a little bit about how this game came to be. It sounded like you know, kind of saw this need, this kind of like missing piece in the market. I know I've seen you kind of mention on like social media about wanting to play these kind of games like Total War, but like don't want to get sucked into this like enormous campaign. It's like, you want to do something a little more bite sized where you can kind of like get in and play it a lot more in a little bit more of a digestible manner. Is that kind of a fair way to kind of put the kind of core problem that you were trying to solve almost to the kind of high level there?
Yeah, I think that's a perfect description of the game. Basically, although I, have been playing Total War games for so many years. It goes way back, but I found myself personally like gravitating when I got home from work to like just simpler little quick games that you can get a nice little like 20-minute run in, play once or twice, and then put down for the night. And the core, I guess, gist of Total War for anyone that hasn't played it, it's like a grand 4X strategy game where you build out like a huge empires, like sprawling across like different continents. And as part of that, although there is like a whole campaign side where you're, sacking different settlements and building different types of buildings, there's a whole campaign management, but inside of that, there are the individual battles. And I was trying to figure out if there was some way that I could take those individual battles and turn them into a run-based game, whether it's roguelike or roguelite. I'm going to be honest, I don't even remember the difference between the two of them. But I was very particular looking at other games that have popped off on Steam that are made by either solo or small teams, and run-based games are doing very, very well. Whether you can think of that as something like Vampire Survivors, or any of the million clones that have come off of that, like Megabonk recently in the past year, or any of like the deck builder games. Part of what I was trying to do with this was do something a little different that a lot of those games don't do. So I thought that if I could take the individual battle aspect from Total War and put that into a run-based game, I could come out with a product that no one else on Steam had done to this point. There are some similar games like SOVL, I know is pretty popular, which is somewhat similar, but I think their graphics are much more simplified, of like using sprites just for like the shapes of formations instead of like individual units. Masters of
Okay.
Command is something that came out in the past year which I've actually got a bundle with them. Those devs are really, really nice.
Nice.
That's more of like a pike and shot type of, I want to say like Napoleonic era ish, which is also very similar. That came out within the past year or so, but there weren't a whole lot of games like this. And now I think you're starting to see quite a few of them pop up.
Yeah, so it's almost like you kind of extracted, just that one kind of core combat mechanic from the Total War, but then repackaged it in a way that kind of does well on Steam and is, it's kind of I'm trying to think of the best way to put this. Like it's a way like accessible, like for a solo developer to actually create. Like, you're not going to be like creating this like insanely massive campaign, something that's, kind of roguelike, that's a little more randomly generated, that, is a little more run based, that's, typically with these like smaller teams, that's, it makes a lot more sense for the smaller teams to kind of develop something like that, rather than, spending all the time and resources to create something, on a much larger scale.
Exactly. And there's different types of games that I like. Probably one of my favorite game experiences of the past few years was It Takes Two, and playing that like local co-op split screen. I thought that was a ton of fun, and Split Fiction as well. I'm not going to ever try to make one of those games because they're incredibly asset heavy. Like each environment has to be completely unique. And, when you're looking at an indie solo development thing, I think the run-based nature makes the most sense, so that when I build out all these systems for how artillery works and how ranged units work, I can, make a new faction that may double the amount of playtime, double the amount of interest that, players can have, while it doesn't double the amount of coding that I have to do on the back end.
Yeah, I think, especially with, kind of when you add in some of those random elements, you kind of get a lot of those like interesting, like combinatoric elements. Like you kind of take, these different small little parts, and then you can kind of combine those in a bunch of different ways. And now you get, all these different pathways that kind of add a lot more replayability into the game without necessarily, creating that stuff kind of manually.
Exactly. It's been really, really cool to see people like describing different strategies that they use. Like, oh, I like taking this faction and these specific items, and if you combine them, you get like this really overpowered build that you can like breeze through the hardest difficulties on. So that's probably been the most like rewarding, fun bit that I've seen the community interact in.
Yeah, totally. I just want to call out a couple things here. Total War Light. I thought that was kind of a, a funny,
that
funny
phase
way
the
to put
best.
that.
Yeah.
And Mr. Awesome, we do appreciate the super chat here. This code base is what happens when Unity mono behaviors and dots agree to co-parent a game, but refuse to communicate except through global singletons. Well, we're definitely going to be getting into that very shortly here. Still do want to talk about a few more things about the game before we get into some of the code. I do want to talk about kind of the setting, how you kind of like have it in, played out in this, like on a tabletop in this kind of old tavern. Like, how did you kind of come up with this idea? I think it's like a super cool idea. It's really like charming is kind of like the best way that I can kind of put it. Like when I'm playing through it, I'm like, oh, this is like super just like neat, I think.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I'll have to pull up on Twitter at some point. But I can show you like early versions of the game. I actually didn't have the tavern idea until maybe like 4 or 5 months into developing it.
Okay, because I think I remember you sharing some of the early things, and it was just kind of like the battles, right?
Exactly. And I don't know. It was a kind of, I was sober when I came up with it, but it was just kind of a drunk idea of like, oh, what if they were like playing on a tabletop? Because I've got memories growing up of buying the little it was the Lord of the Rings line, but from Games Workshop, their little figures, and painting up those models and having huge little battles with my buddies in my basement growing up. So I it was just like a kind of a spur of the moment idea, and I messed around with some cameras a little bit and was like, oh yeah, this can actually work. So I can actually show in Unity a little bit later how I'm doing that.
Sweet. I think this is really funny from Bonte. Mom, mono behaviors, and dad dots fighting again.
Well, we'll show the lawyer class that they communicate through.
Yeah, there you go. Jumping back to the YouTube stuff real quick. You said you're kind of lately kind of prioritizing that as kind of like mostly like a marketing vessel. So do you feel like you're now kind of catering that more towards like players rather than the developers?
Yes. I mean, mostly just for selfish reasons of wanting to use that as a great funnel to get eyes on the game, have people see it, and if they like it, play the demo that I still have up, and if they like the demo, purchase the game. That's always cool. I might make some developer kind of one-off content in the future, but it would be more of like design related. I'm not sure if you've seen any of Jonas's tie rollers more recent.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Some of his more recent sort of like how to find the fun in games. I found that sort of content very interesting. And Thronefall was definitely an inspiration for this, where I downloaded it because I wanted something that had that like sort of medieval run-based building type of gameplay without having to, boot up a massive long campaign. And but yeah, going forward, I might make a little bit of dev content, but it's primarily going to be used for like just marketing this game and whatever comes next.
Yeah. Because yeah, it seems like I think your more recent videos on Tabletop Tavern have also done super well. So does it seem like you've been hitting that audience of people who are interested in playing the game?
Yes, definitely. I will say having that like starter base of, I probably had 20,000 subscribers or so before I started Tabletop Tavern. That was a great like launch pad to getting it out there and getting eyes on it. So I don't know if I would have had that same success if I hadn't had the YouTube channel built up for a few years.
Do you think there was any particular strategy of finding that audience of players rather than because I guess traditionally your channel had kind of attracted more of a developer base, it sounded like. So do you think it's just kind of like the algorithm kind of naturally picked that up, and people who are playing those types of games, it just kind of like those videos kind of got recommended to them, and like it just kind of snowballed a little bit from there? Or was there a little bit more intention on kind of how you put that video out there or how you position the video?
So the more recent videos that have blown up really well have not been like my previous content, which was, around 10-minute long YouTube videos as like a devlog. There's a lot of good resources for building out a trailer for your game. Derek Yu, I think, of Spelunky fame, has some good content on making trailers. Definitely the point of the trailer is not to attract subscribers or game developers. I don't even tell people to subscribe. What I want to do is make content that's interesting enough that people will watch all the way through, even if it's just a minute. I'm not a YouTube expert, but from what it seems like from their algorithm, the higher the total watch time of the video, YouTube will push that out to more and more people. So I had like the initial trailer for Tabletop Tavern when it was almost basically nothing. Like I think I spent the first 6 months or so of development building out stuff so that I could show it in a trailer. So like I had like a rudimentary spell system back then, which isn't even in the game at this point, just because I wanted that in the initial trailer. And I could probably even bring up the Notion page from back then, but it was like, this week I want to work on like unit death animations so that I can show that in the trailer. This week I want to work on adding some like monstrous units because I think that would look good in the trailer. So definitely from like a trailer standpoint, I feel like I've got a pretty good idea. I also had some help on the trailer from Jordan, my marketing guy, who recorded all the footage and edited it a lot.
Nice.
But a lot of that was primarily geared on making like an indie dev trailer that looks professional and is interesting enough that people will watch most of it, and letting the YouTube gods push it as far as they will.
Awesome.
I think I think whether it's YouTube or whether it's Steam, a lot of those platforms have algorithms that are based around keeping people in YouTube watching videos. There's a lot of stuff like you don't really want to link off of the YouTube page too much. As much as I know that would have increased my wish lists. And I do like make a little call to wish lists sometimes. Keeping people on YouTube is definitely something good for YouTube to push the video more. For the Steam algorithm, the more people are playing the game and enjoying the game and liking the game, Steam cares about one thing, and that's making money. So if your game's doing well, it's going to keep pushing it to people. I do think there's like a little bit of luck involved, but I don't think you can really try to make a game and hope luck takes you all the way. You have to make something that people actually want to play and actually want to purchase. And if you do that, then, Steam might reward you and push it in front of a few more eyes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it definitely seems like your game has that it factor, I mean, was there like a time where you kind of like recognized where you're like, oh, like this game is going to be like really like popular. Like this is going to be like a pretty big thing.
I'd say I was never confident in it because I had seen so many games, and like, not to like directly call out someone, but did you see the whole I don't know what to call it, mixed reaction to a Cuff Bust when that came out?
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
That was a game with a lot of hype, with a lot of wish lists, and the reviews were not very kind to it. And I did a lot of stuff when this game came out where there were still bugs. There were a lot of bugs. There were a lot of balance issues, but I tried to do as much as I could to foster goodwill with the community. So like one thing I did was I promised that I wasn't going to do any paid DLC. I open sourced most of the code base. I tried to do as much as I possibly could, like reacting to player feedback in real time. The first like 3 weeks after the game launched, I was sleeping like 4 hours a night, like just trying to just crank out like daily updates of fixing stuff. And I know that made a huge impact because like looking at the reviews on Steam, so many of the reviews were like, oh, the dev's updating it every single day, giving me a positive review. When if I just like threw it out there and was like, okay, it made my, few $1,000, I'm going to walk away. I know it would not have done as well as it did. As to how well it did, there's a lot of estimations that you can make off of wish lists as to how many sales you're going to get. So I assumed it was going to do like X amount of sales in the first week, and I think it wound up hitting that in like 24 hours.
Damn.
Which I was surprised by. And I'm very confident that if I keep building on it for the next year or so, and eventually way down the line, I want to add multiplayer. I know that the game's just going to keep doing well.
Yeah. It seems like, I really like your approach. You seem like very straight up about how, you're kind of using that almost as like a marketing tool, like in your Steam page, where you're saying, there's like, no DLC, anything like that. I think also a lot of, like, I've seen some of your responses to some of the negative reviews. I think you've had like very professional responses to, all those negative reviews there, and seems like you have been, like you say, addressing those with, pushing out updates to, fix some of those more immediate issues, as quickly as you can for those things. So I think that is, super important for the long-term success of the game, for sure.
Yeah, I definitely I don't I almost don't want to say the quote because I feel like it was like I think it's like Goldman Sachs or like some like investment banker, but they use the term long-term greedy, which like I feel like I could have made a lot of money from DLC, but I think I'll make more money with people like in Reddit comments or YouTube comments being like, "Oh, I'm not too sure about the game," and then someone replies, "Hey, the dev said that they're not doing any paid DLC," or like, "Hey, look, this is like I think that like drastically improved my review score on Steam." So like little things that it may look like I'm taking a loss in the long term, I'm actually greatly benefiting from, because the more positive reviews you get, the more Steam's going to push your game, the more sales you're going to get. So like, yes, maybe I could have made like, another X $1,000 by selling like DLC packs. But if I promise not to do that, I may make, 5 times that amount from positive word of mouth.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's goodwill, which I think is extremely important nowadays. Like, it's every other day we see game companies doing things that everybody online dislikes. And, when there is a breath of fresh air, when there is, some super cool solo developer who's working on this, really fun game, who's continually updating it, making it better, and you're not like charging the audience more for increasing what they've already purchased. I think it really does go a long way. So I think that's super cool.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess, do you want to get into kind of chatting about the game here? Actually, real quick, I need to tell the story about the first time I played this game, because it is kind of a funny story. So you released this game when I was out visiting some family for a little bit, so I only had my MacBook with me, and the game only supports PC right now. So I did have my Steam Deck with me, and so I guess Steam does have this feature where you can like remote into your PC and like play Steam Remote Play or whatever like that, but um, like 2 days after I left, to go visit family, my apartment building got struck by lightning, and it fried my, internet modem.
Oh,
So, I couldn't, access my PC back home, so this was, kind of the setup that I used to play,
no
Tabletop
way.
Tavern to start. So I had, my Steam Deck, hooked up to a little dock here, just connected to a little monitor and PC and mouse, on a yoga ball here. So
That is insane. There's real like male surviving space
oh yeah,
vibes. I like
oh
it.
yeah. So yeah, I guess with that, yeah, when you're ready, I can share your screen and we can kind of get into chatting a little bit about Tabletop Tavern here.
All right. I am going to real quickly open the Unity editor just so that I can kind of explain the basics of the game for anyone that's not familiar with it, so that when we're diving into the code, they have a rough idea of what I'm talking about when I say units or formations or
Yeah, yeah.
squad flags or something like that. So I'm gonna boot it up real quickly. And I'm gonna rely on you for saying that on your end it's displaying.
Yep, we can see it.
All right. So here's how like the individual battles are set up. You're on a little table in the middle of a tavern. This is your little player character. There's the enemy that I'm facing, this little Goblin King guy. He's on a stool. So you've got your formations. I've got 4 right here. I've got some swordsmen, some archers. You can select them. They're all these little individual units. So if I go down and look at any of them, oops. You got all your little swordsmen. I've got 8 or so factions. So if I want to grab, let's grab, I don't know, maybe some artillery from the elves, some cavalry, why not? You've got your different types of units. So got some cavalry here. Got some artillery. It's got a little bit more range. If I select them all, I've got this little like smart formation set up so that it places all the melee units in the front, all the ranged in the middle, and any artillery in the back. And yeah, each little individual formation has a flag in the middle that you can use to select them. They've got all their different melee attack, melee defense, etc. stats, the name of the units. These are the little enemies chilling over here. We've got some goblins. And yeah. So if I even wanted to start the battle, you can click on any of your units and command them to go attack the enemy with artillery as well. Let's actually get a few little fires in just so you can see how that looks. You can also like queue commands. So I can have the cav come around on a flank.
What's the hotkey for queuing commands? I need to learn that for my next run here.
It's shift.
Oh, okay.
Something else that I've done, which is something that is absolutely expected by the Steam audience. You'll often hear devs talk about how important it is to have remapping for literally everything. So any specific control, whether it's selecting the groups on 1 through 6, if I wanted to, here, I can pause it here. Let's say I wanted to have all my melee troops, I can group them. Group to group 1. My ranged ones, I can group into group 2, and then I can select them via hotkeys. So even stuff like this, whereas if I wanted, selecting group 1s to actually be on, I don't know, minus.
Yeah.
I can do that as well. It's just like a little quality of life thing that, took an hour or so to set up the first time. And each time I add a new button, whether it's, setting their defensive stance or casting some sort of spell, all of those are set up on hotkeys just because it's something that players expect. So, yeah.
Yeah. And especially like some people have slightly different keyboard layouts, and like that could kind of mess with controls. So having like that ability to remap things is like super important for those cases too.
Yeah, like I had one guy who wanted to remap like the WASD to like ESAD because of the way his keyboard layout was.
Right. I think like French keyboards or something are like sometimes different.
Yeah. So it's one of those. Now I can't drive around because I'm trying to hit W. But yeah, it's like one of those little things that you hear in like game dev advice that you have to do for a game. So again, it may not be the most interesting or like sexy thing to add, but if it's what players expect, it's kind of what you have to do.
Does that grouping carry between like from battle to battle?
If you do it before battle starts, there's a little like save formation, which saves how all your units are set up. And yeah, it'll keep that grouping from battle to battle.
Sweet.
So like if you want to like play like a real turtle and like put all corner camp in the back corner, you can do that and it'll save your formation for each time. Let me switch this real quick. Oh, and you can also just reset everything back to default. So yeah, that is kind of the basic setup of how the game runs. I've got all my different game objects here in the inspector in the entities hierarchy. If you want to look at any of the specific squads, the squad is just what I call it on the back end for a group of units. So you'll see if I look at any of these, I'm looking at these swordsmen right now. They've got all the specific components that we need for ECS, such as a melee squad and a player squad, which I'll show later why those are important. They're with the different factions. This is the Iron Legion faction, so they've all got like a special effect. So I've tagged them all as Iron Legion units, and I'll have some logic in ECS that only runs on them and that won't affect the Goblin units. So yeah.
Awesome. Just catching up on some things in the chat here. I think
Yeah, if
some
anyone
people
has
were. I think it was funny that
comments or
you're just
questions.
calling out that, or some people thought it was funny that you're calling out the goblin on the stool there.
Yep. Trying to, add some memes, add some flavor. Definitely, I don't want to take the game too seriously. There's no real lore. It's just it's for fun. It's not
There's definitely like a lot of you can see a lot of like your personality come through in the game. Like when there's like the little tips in there, you can see like what's the one like, oh, you don't have to wash the dishes if you just let them soak or whatever.
Yeah, I've got quite a few random tips. Actually, I moved them all into localization because it's got to be localized for every language. But
We actually do have a question about that.
Go ahead.
Mr. Awesome says, how did you decide which localization or like I guess which languages to support for localization?
So right now it's English, Spanish, which is like I guess old world Spanish is what you would call it, like Spain.
Like Spain Spanish, not like
Spain
Mexico Spanish.
Correct. Chinese, I've got simplified and traditional, French, German, Japanese, Korean, Russian. Kind of a mix of where I got these. I did sign with a Chinese publisher, so they did all the Chinese translations. The Korean one was actually done by a community member, but the other ones were all done by this company. I guess I'll shout them out. They're called All Correct. They've done it for a lot of big games. I think Dispatch was a recent game that they did, but they did a phenomenal job. As to how I chose those languages, on Steam's backend, you can see the downloads as to where people are playing your game the most. And I just picked the 6 regions that had the highest amount of downloads of the demo and figured those are probably the 6 languages that are most important to translate. I'd love to do a few more like obscure ones like Portuguese. I think I probably need.
Yeah,
and
that's a big one. I know.
I might do Ukrainian as well, just for the vibes there. But the minimum viable product to get it out the door, those were the languages that I think had the biggest impact.
Nice.
One language I've heard nightmare stories about is doing Arabic, because that goes from right to left. So I've heard that is almost an entire game in of itself to try to translate that.
I guess this is kind of UI related, and we might get into some UI stuff later on, but is the UI from UI Toolkit, or is it kind of the traditional canvas-based game object UI?
It's a traditional canvas-based. I've heard nothing but positive things about UI Toolkit. I just don't know how to use it yet. So, I could investigate how to build it out, but this works. So, if it ain't broke, part of being an indie developer is you have to figure out what makes the most bang for your buck. And the current way that I know to do UI is to do the old system. So, if I have to learn the new system in the future, then I will. But this works. So I got the game done in under 2 years. A lot of that is prioritizing what really matters. And I don't want to get like hung up on little decisions like that.
Yeah. And it seems like you do a really good job with the UI stuff. There's a lot of like good tool tips. It's all like very easy and intuitive to use and everything. So, it does everything that you need it to do, just by using the kind of standard canvas-based approach.
Yeah, and so much of that just comes from player feedback. Like literally today in the next update that I'll push, the most minor things of people saying like, hey, it would be really nice if for like the specific faction effects, if you had the faction name there as well, because I sometimes don't remember all the factions, then I'm like, okay, I'll add that. So a lot of it's been trial and error and really listening to player feedback as to what they want displayed, because you can really get hung up as a game developer of like, I built this button, I know what this button does, but unless you explicitly communicate that to the player, doesn't mean that they're going to know what it does. Like even all these little hotkeys that I have. Let me select an archer. Like, what does auto retarget mean? What does melee mode mean? What's the hotkey for fire at will mode? So lots of tool tips, lots of mousing over should always, give a little bit extra information. Like, what does shielded mean? Oh, it's a 35% chance to block missile attacks from the front. So lots of things that I just kind of learned from trial and error and listening to player feedback, such as like, why do I have a bonus here to the charge bonus? Oh, it's because I've got this take back our lands effect. So that gives me a +2, and that's why it's green.
Yeah. I think all that stuff is super helpful because, I mean, I am, I haven't played any of the Total War games, but as I was playing through this game, all the tool tips, everything was like very clear to me. I'm like, oh, okay, that all, makes sense. So it is helpful information to have.
And definitely a few things I could do better. Often I get a lot of people saying like, oh, how do I like show the arrows of where all the units are going? I have a hotkey for that, but a lot of people keep telling me to add it. And that means that I'm not properly telling people how the hotkey works. So yeah, a lot of it is reading all of the reviews, especially the negative ones. I know a lot of the advice on YouTube is to not read negative comments, but unfortunately you really have to with game dev.
Yeah. I guess we haven't really talked too much about dots and ECS yet. I guess maybe this kind of might be an interesting point to start this conversation, is just kind of like why did you kind of choose to do this? Was it a thing from like, was it like a necessary thing, or were you just kind of like experimenting around with it and this kind of it just kind of grew into what it is now, or kind of how did that come to be?
It was definitely the start of the project. I knew I wanted to use ECS because I wanted to have so many little units on the screen, and there's a reason why this niche was open to be exploited by me, and have why there weren't games made in it. It's because as a using a commonplace engine like Unreal or Unity or Godot, no one had really made something like this because it's very, very, very performance heavy, and without ECS, it definitely would not exist. Creative Assembly, the developers behind Total War, who have been like super, super gracious towards me, and I'm really
I saw they've like some of their social media accounts have like replied to some of your stuff. And
yeah, although I'm taking a lot of inspiration from them, I'm being very, very careful to make sure that all my units have unique needs, that all my effects are unique, and that I'm not blatantly ripping anything that they've built upon. But they use their own custom engine, and without access to that custom engine, indie devs before haven't been able to build something like this. So without ECS, this project's just not even possible.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, I mean, maybe we can kind of start getting into some of the code stuff a little bit. So I know one of the things that you wanted to talk about was, I guess, this thing that you have open here is kind of your bridge between entities and game objects. Do you think this would be a good place to kind of start getting into some of the code here?
Yeah, and this bridge isn't particularly interesting, but I'll explain what it is because it's kind of the backbone of the whole game. This is, as we were joking about earlier, the lawyer talks between mom and dad being game objects in ECS. I've got a whole bunch of entity queries set up that I run this little setup function at the start, and it will go through and create all of these queries that contain, these are the create entity queries, and I'm just reading specific things such as whenever a squad command is issued, whenever there's like a blood effect that needs to be applied, or whenever I'm changing the battle phase, and then at the end I tear this down and dispose of all those queries. But this is the main bridge between the game objects and the ECS. So for this, let's just look at a random one. For instance, this is like setting up all the squad or the formations of the game objects. So I'm iterating through this native array. This is called needs entities. So it's reading. This query needs to be processed, which is a entity query of read-only type squad entity game objects processing needed. So this is something that's created in ECS. Then I'll read through that, iterate through those. I have a few like null checks just to make sure that it has the components that I'm looking for. I'd love to like clean this up at some point. However, in the interest of stability, I do have a lot of these in. They don't fire very often, and I know has component is a little bit extra overhead, but in the interest of stability and keep the game from crashing, having these little checks has definitely been invaluable before I try to access any of these squad entity components, which I'm getting directly off any of those.
And so when is this taking place like at the start of pretty much every battle?
Correct. So this is actually taking place a little bit before the start. This is when any of the units are spawned in. So it's iterating through. This is just some specific logic I have for gates because they're their own little thing. But it's going through, and if it's a ranged type of unit, I'm getting their amount of ammunition, and I'm setting them as a ranged squad, adding their ammunition value to that. If they're artillery, a little thing to handle that. I've got some specific logic where if you're playing the game on a certain hero, like this one hero, one of the dwarf heroes, it actually buffs the amount of ammunition that the squad gets. So that is a thing. If they're not artillery or ranged, they're getting this melee squad added to them. It goes through all the player squads and enemy squads. This calls my UI manager and adds the specific squad with the amount of units to that. So then I can have UI that interacts with that squad entity and will listen for updates, whether it's like units are dying or whether they're retreating. And also will allow you to select that specific squad entity to send commands to it via clicking on their little unit cards at the bottom. So yeah, all the logic is in here.
Sweet. So this is basically just kind of like loading up, because like when you're kind of like in more of like the tavern side of things, like there's kind of the different shops, and you can kind of like boost your different units and everything to like boost the stats. So I guess does this kind of like almost like load all that in, so like that stuff is kind of like in like it's kind of loading that up in for the squads to actually before they engage in combat, essentially.
Correct. So this is like once all these squads are loaded in ECS, it's calling stuff like my battle manager to like set up the debug stuff if I need to do that, or the UI manager to set up the little attack arrows, which are game objects related. So this basically what it does is it grabs what's going on in the ECS screen so that I can translate that and interact with any of my game objects or UI systems. Because as I'm sure your viewers know, there is no easy way to do UI or animations with entities.
Right. So do you end up using, it seems like you're kind of using a fair bit of maybe mono behavior singletons, but are you also using like Unity object ref for like kind of using, like referencing mono behaviors and game object things from the ECS side?
A little bit, not as much, because again, like the number one, I guess, most important thing whenever you're building an indie game is that even if you're selling it at indie game prices, players still expect that AAA level of quality, and polish is something where if your game crashes, even if it's once every 5 hours, that's way too much. So I'm trying my best to prevent that from ever happening. And using this as like the bridge class. It's very simple. You can see all the different functions that I'm handling through here. And, like this is, for instance, looking for explosion shakes. So when I have something in ECS that needs an explosion shake, it then calls the camera shaker at the specific position that I wanted, and then I just destroy that little explosion shake, basically flag saying that it needs to happen somewhere. So it's just calling this explosion shake with a position.
So that's in a mono behavior, but then you're still getting the entity array of that, and then you're getting that explosion shake data, and then okay. So I guess this explosion shake, do you like create like a new entity that has that explosion shake data component on there, and then you populate that with some information related to so yeah, I guess in this case you just have like the position of the explosion shake.
Yep. So I'm adding this new little explosion. I'm creating this new shake entity, which this happens pretty rarely. So it's not the biggest overhead cost, but whenever I'm doing some sort of explosion, I'm creating this new shake entity, adding an explosion shake with the exact position where it's actually happening. I'm removing the explosion that does happen. And then back here, I'm querying for all of those on explosion shakes. And then down below, getting them and telling the camera, hey, I need to have an explosion shake at this point.
Yeah, that's awesome. I would totally do something exactly like this. Although I do have a minor bit of code roasting, because I know we kind of wanted to do a little bit of code roasting in here. If you go back to where you're creating this entity, in this case, it probably doesn't matter too much because the entity just has one component on it.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're creating entities, rather than doing create entity, like entity command buffer, create entity, then add component, add component, add component, add component, it's better to do create entity, pass in the archetype, which has all the components on it already, and then do set component, set component, set component, set component. It's not really like going to be like a major speed up. The big difference is that each time you add a component, it changes the archetype of that entity. So it technically has to like copy that entity memory around. So it ends up being a little bit inefficient, but again, in the case of just adding a single component, probably not that big of a deal, but there, may be some other cases where you're, adding 2 or 3 components where it would make a little bit more sense to do set components rather than adding a bunch.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you for that.
Of course. So yeah, I mean, I guess anything else that we want to, what would be next to kind of talk about in this bridge class here?
I think that is like the general data flow.
I guess like would like sound effects be something kind of like similar to that?
We can look at sound effects. Specifically, I've got these sound effect buffer elements that I'm setting up. So they may have the unit name being what I'm calling it from, and I've got this sound effect entity type, whether it's just, this is basically what type of sound effect I want to play, whether it's like, just an idle one, a death, whether they're firing projectiles or making melee attacks. Looks like I'm not even looking for explosions right now.
So what is the purpose of that sound effect type?
So this is so that whenever I create these sound effects buffer elements, I have this gets added to, this is like a specific type of data that is added. I've got a dynamic buffer that I'm reading from. So I can, throw a bunch of these onto the buffer in the same frame. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you're processing them all in the same, like if you're kind of processing them all at one, like if you're adding to them from a bunch of different places and then like I guess processing them all at one point in the frame, is that kind of what you're doing?
Yes. So like I'm iterating through the buffer,
Yeah.
and depending on what type it is, I've got
Okay. So you just are passing in an enum value, and then based off of that enum value, it determines what actual sound effect should be played. Is that kind of
correct. So
okay?
like let me look at I don't know, Levy Swordsman. So for each unit, I've got a scriptable object that I'm using for the voice sound effects or melee sound effects, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And this scriptable object, like this voice one, kind of see if I drag this, make it a little bigger. Hope you can see that. For each one of these, like, so this is for Iron Legion. This is like your generic male sound effect. He's got a whole bunch of different idle ones that can be picked from: death ones, retreat, charge, bark.
Oh, okay.
So from all of these, when they get passed in, it's getting a random one of those sound effects. And then it's just returning that audio clip.
That's a cool way to do that. So then, yeah, you're basically just passing around that enum, and then it's like, yeah, depending on what the unit is, then it can look up in its scriptable object, and then it will just randomly pick one of those ones that it has assigned there.
Exactly.
Cool. For actually playing the audio, do you have like a bunch of audio sources pooled up or something?
How did I do this? Yes, I have an object pool of this little sound emitter that just plays wherever I want. And for a lot of the sound effects, I have a let me see where I'm getting it here. Somewhere in here, I'm pulling out the distance, and if it's within that X distance, it will play it. But if you're too far away from the battle, it's not going to be playing every individual little sound effect, because it's probably not wanted.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, one thing I was going to kind of ask you, and this might not end up being a problem because of that distance thing, but have you run into the issue at all of like having too many like audio sources playing at once?
Yes, and I think I actually have something set up where I've got a max concurrent amount of audio sources. So if it's above whatever number, it's probably 8 in the same frame, but I might have changed this in the inspector. If it's above that number, then it just returns and it doesn't actually play it.
Okay.
Which is fine, because I feel like if you're hearing at least 8 sound effects at one time, that's probably enough.
Yeah. At some point, it just kind of gets to be a lot, because that was one thing that I noticed with my Survivors game, when I had like all these aliens playing like death sound effects and like hit sound effects and everything like that. Like at some point, like it just kind of like cuts off like new sound effects from playing.
Yeah, so I have a limit on it. So it does cut them off, but it doesn't get into like territory where it all just sounds like muddled,
just complete garbage. So
yeah. A lot of this is stuff that I learned by booting up similar games and seeing like, okay, how do they handle audio when there's a million units really close together, and being able to still hear like some clear audio, even if you're maybe not getting every single event that fires. That seems to be the way professional games do it, so that's how I'll do it here.
Yeah, I'm sure there's probably a bunch of different ways that you can kind of like fake it, where you can have like one you know, like kind of background sound effect that sounds like there's like a bunch of people screaming, but it's not like, you know, actually like a million different audio sources.
Yeah, like for when the units are running, there's actually only one audio source played for each squad or formation or each group of units, and it's just something that I built in Audacity, where it just sounds like a bunch of like boot steps trampling at the same time. So instead of playing like individual footstep sounds every time someone's foot touches the ground, it's just what a host sounds like when you're running.
Yeah.
And I added a comment, so it's going to take a minute to compile.
How has your iteration speed been? I guess kind of speaking of compilation times and all.
Generally it's not too bad. You can see it's done there. It's usually at worst maybe like 20 seconds. But with the size of the project, I've tried to go through and I've got assemblies set up. You can see them in here, but in all the code that I uploaded, I've got assemblies and smaller ones down in each specific system, so that, you know, if I change the code in one file, it doesn't recompile my entire project. It just recompiles anything that touches those scripts. So Unity assemblies are kind of a must-have once your project starts getting kind of large.
Yeah.
Like for instance, and if I'm getting too into the weeds on anything, tell me. But like my input system,
That's awesome.
I've got a specific assembly for that. So, you know, it just recompiled right there because I added some comment to the explosion sound effect system. None of this actually recompiled because it's in its own separate assembly. So none of these scripts were actually touched. Or
Nice.
this is Unity's input system. So I guess that's not that much of a flex.
Well, yeah.
I've probably got, where is memory input? There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. So like none of these scripts recompiled because they're all stuck in their own little assembly.
Do you typically, when you're developing, do you have burst on? Do you like wait for burst compilation before you test normally, or do you have that off and just kind of like?
I've gone back and forth on that because
just
it's
kind
a
of
lot
depending on what you're testing, I guess.
Yeah, it's a lot faster with it turned off. However, sometimes you want it turned on so you see like burst related errors. Yeah, I don't think I have a best practices on that.
Yeah, no, I was just kind of curious about your standard development process. I'm pretty similar boat. I'd say mostly have burst disabled, but you know, definitely want to enable it every now and then to make sure I'm not like forgetting to, you know, like accidentally putting in some burst error or something, or
yeah.
Sorry, what were we going to show off? We're going to show off something again here.
I can real quick of just the way these little flags, the position for them is done. I actually got a nice shader that fades them away when you get too close.
Oh, cool. Is this shader graph?
Yes. I am not an expert on shader graph, but I have found that using AI to learn shader graph has been pretty cool. So like this was an effect that I put together of like, hey, I've got this shader. I want, when the player is X distance from it, I want to, you know, fade it out so that it's invisible. And I was able to build that.
Nice. Yeah, it's kind of fun. I think I did use some LLM thing for some shader graph thing, and it kind of worked, but it was just kind of funny that it was like just this bunch of text just like kind of walking me through like wiring up these nodes on this node graph. And I'm like, oh, okay, like this is like kind of getting me somewhere.
Yes, let me see if I can pull it up. But I think I've got like a alpha here that's just being written to.
Yeah.
Oop, there we go. And I also have like the flags. They kind of flash in and out when their morale is wavering, which is another thing that just comes from player feedback of being like, hey, I wish, there was some sort of way I could tell when a unit's about to break. So added this little wavering effect.
Okay.
So that,
okay.
Yeah. And all the flags, I just have one, and I'm setting all the different like primary colors. Like you'll see the different factions have different colored flags. That's all just done through on runtime, setting the specific colors to what I want them to be.
Now, are you using any of the like entities graphics material override stuff, or is this all just kind of like attached to game object stuff?
That is all attached to game objects.
But I'm sure you're probably still using some amount of material overrides.
Yeah, especially on the
for the
individual
flag
units.
colors and
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I know you wanted to talk about some of the things kind of related to I guess like finding the center of the squad.
Yeah, so like just the way those are positioned. I think it's squad center system. So this is just a burst compiled job where I'm taking in all the positions of all the different, looking up the local transforms of all the units in the squad. It's going through the entity buffer, which is a reference buffer that I have slapped onto every squad that holds all the individual soldiers. And it's just popping through all of them to get all of their positions so that I can get the pure squad center. And this runs in like a fraction of a millisecond of a frame. But again, this is all just done through jobs. So I don't actually have to use Unity's mono behaviors, which would be incredibly slow to be constantly doing this.
And so you're actually looking at like all the individual units in each squad, right?
Yes, to determine their center.
Just kind of looking through, and it just seems like you're kind of what is the actual math operation? Is it just kind of like averaging out their position, or
Yep, it's just adding every position, dividing it by dividing the sum of all the positions by the amount, the entity buffer length. And I've got a little check for NAND because that was causing crashes sometimes. If
gosh,
I would there's a lot of things that were just like, oh hey, this caused a crash, let me put in a check to prevent that, and then we go from there.
Mr. Awesome says, good job using jobs.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe we can talk about some of the combat stuff, because I think that is primarily I mean what you're using ECS for, right?
Yes. So that I think it would be melee unit.
So actually, maybe can we just real quick talk a little bit about how combat works, just like back in the editor? So like,
of course,
you're kind of controlling these different squads, and there's like kind of the individual units in them. So I guess like what is kind of like being tracked like at each level of like squad versus unit? Like does like each unit have its own health, or is like health more just kind of tracked on the overall squad? Like how is that kind of like, where are those lines kind of being drawn for combat?
Yep. So each individual unit has its own amount of health, and then that health is all added together to create a total health for the squad. So this, looking at these swordsmen right now, there's 48 units. It's got 4,800 total health. Pretty obviously 100 health per unit. So if I say send them into battle against these goblins, what you'll see is the squad's total health is going to tick down a bit. when they get into combat. So you'll see the squad's total health has ticked down a bit. It's now at 4460, but they do still have all 48 units alive because that's health that's missing from a bunch of these frontline units. Each one of these, we got a nice little arrow flying in. Each one of these little frontline units does have its own logic to find enemy units and to fight them.
Okay, so like the actual battle is like being simulated on a very like low level unit to unit basis, right? Like there's actual combat between the individual units. Health is being tracked at that like very granular level there.
Correct. So like this, I've got one kill. So there's one goblin that's dead. You can actually see him right there. But
yeah, I was trying to like I couldn't really tell at first if you were like faking it and if it was just like the squad health was just kind of like a total health thing and like units dying were just kind of randomly happening, or if you were like actually simulating. But I think that's awesome that you're like actually simulating things on that like
that granular
basis.
level. It's definitely cool because when I have things like artillery that does a ton of damage, but it only hits rarely, that will do enough to maybe kill a few units that it hits. And you may actually even sometimes see if the units have a lot of health, it may chunk out quite a bit of the squad's health bar, but it won't actually show any dead units. So that's also something that's kind of cool.
Are you using any like, are you using dots physics or just any kind of physics engine? Is it your own custom thing or anything like that?
Maybe you could answer that question better by looking at the code. I guess I am using dots physics for stuff like
so like do your entity units have like colliders and rigid bodies?
Yes, they do.
Okay, so then you are using like dots physics. I guess so, like at least for like so like that is kind of, I guess, preventing them from kind of overlapping. And then I do think the other day when we were talking, we'll probably look at this a little bit, that you are doing some kind of physics queries with dots physics as well.
Yes. Especially like when artillery hits and it shows the little units flying. So I can actually, I'll add a few of the cannons to show how that looks.
Do you have a bunch of like really cool debug controls here where you can like add a bunch of crazy units and give yourself god powers and everything?
Yeah, definitely. I know, trying to stick a little bit more on ECS because we spent so much time talking about other things. But in terms of game development, I've got like a whole list of stuff. It's actually on my scene handler. Like I've got all these little like overrides that I'm using, and they're automatically set off whenever I upload a build. So like I've got like, if it's in Unity editor, it'll go through all these unit overrides. Otherwise it sets them all to false. That way I don't accidentally upload any of them. But like right now I've got one on that's preventing the enemies from moving, just to make displaying stuff easier.
Yeah.
So like you'll see in a normal battle, these enemies would be charging at you.
Right.
Let me see if I can get a good clip of this. A little late. But when the artillery hits, it does like throw all the units.
Oh, okay. So do you actually are you adding any kind of like explosive forces in there, or is that just like something through code that you're kind of like modifying their positions?
Yeah, that is let me see. I think it's thrown unit system. Unit throw system. So this is going through. It's like ticking down the time each time. I store their initial location and where the hit actually landed, calculating some displacement based on the force that's applied to them. So for different things, there will be different amounts of force. Like, an artillery is going to displace them a lot. A dragon's going to displace them even more. A cavalry charge does have force to it, so it's kind of cool if it'll show units getting like thrown back a bit. But I can start showing some of that as well. So different levels of force are applied, different displacement is applied. This is all just going through code though. And then once it's done, it sets their nav mesh again and their little sonar avoid so that they don't bump into each other, and tells them to go back to where they're supposed to go.
Okay. And so, yeah, it looks like you're just setting the local transform here, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so that you can actually like move them like in an arc, kind of like a nice.
Yep.
Awesome. So yeah, I guess kind of maybe getting back to some of the combat stuff a little bit.
Yeah. So for each individual unit, I think we can just go line by line real quickly through here. Actually, this is just applying the attacks. What do I want? Maybe their find target system might be interesting to look at.
Okay.
But this is iterating through I'm using the collision world.
Yeah. So this is kind of some of the, this is Dot's physics stuff here. So yeah, you're using physics world singleton to do the different physics world queries. And then, so yeah, you're setting your collision filter to basically only look for, it looks like things on the units layer.
Yep, which is just the constant I have in the back end.
Yep. And then looks like you are
I'm going through and getting the closest entity.
Yeah.
And then based on that, the units will seek it out. I do have like this little blocker swap here where if the distance is a little bit closer, but not that much, it doesn't actually switch. That way they're not like constantly turning back and forth, hitting two that are competing as to being the closest.
Wait, so
like the units in combat. What did I want to show? Cav and maybe a monster. So when the two squads collide, you can see a few of the little goblins get thrown from the initial charge.
It's a cool effect.
Yeah. So what all these individual units are doing is they're looking using that collision filter for any units that they want to attack.
Yeah.
So this guy right here is attacking this goblin because he's the closest target. I do have this little check so that they will swap targets to fight the closest one. But if the distance is very similar, then it won't swap. So this guy isn't going to hit him, then hit him, then hit him.
Yeah, because I'm guessing you probably saw at one point there were guys going like.
Yeah, you can tell in the animations because I have them facing their closest target. So you could see like from the animations of like the horse would turn and look at this one, then turn and look at that one, then turn and look at this one. Just because, they're very close, but not close enough.
Right. Yeah.
So
when you
see
have
that,
like
that guy just turned.
Yeah. If you kind of are like, think of it like on a triangle, and like you're kind of in the middle of like two enemies, you could kind of conceivably be bouncing back and forth if just there's like slight movements between all the three guys.
Exactly. So then, yeah. So yeah, this is where it turns to face the new target. And if it does not find a closest entity, meaning that like maybe it's some of these guys on the back rank, I'm just telling them to look at the center of the enemy squad. So these guys, if I charge them in, try not to kill the goblins. So like these little goblins in the back, they may be a little too far away to actually hit anyone. So what they're doing is they're just looking at the squad flag, which is at the center.
Okay. So like looks like they're still kind of engaged in combat, even though they might not necessarily be like actively attacking somebody.
Correct. So like, yeah, these guys in the back, they're just idling. A little too far back to damage, but they're still keeping their eyes on the prize.
It's awesome.
And whenever damage is inflicted, I'm making a new little, whenever damage is inflicted in ECS, here's like the little flashing effect on the flags.
Cool.
Because you can tell because their morale is real low.
Yeah.
That they're about to run away, and now they've stabilized a little bit since they're not getting torched in combat. But all these little blood effects are just little textures that I'm applying to the ground wherever damage happened. So you can see a few little spots out here where guys got hit by arrows before they got into combat. And
Nice.
Normally, yes, all of these units would be engaging, but I've got a whole bunch of editor overrides on right now.
And I'm guessing that was also like those blood effects were also pretty easy to do with just some shader graph wizardry.
Yep, they're just yeah, more or less. They're just,
like you're just kind of figuring out the world position of things and translating that to the coordinates of the texture.
Yeah, it's actually translating it to the coordinates of this. I'm using the brute force grass shader, which I like how it looks. It's not perfect, but it more than
is that an asset or? Yes,
brute force grass shader. Actually, I had to. This one's actually heavily modified to work for my use case because I needed it to do a few things that it didn't. So I got a little bit too into shader.
So how it goes in game dev sometimes.
Yeah, but for the most part, like 10 out of 10 asset for like $10 to get pretty high quality looking grass that's super performant. Like if I turned all this grass off, my FPS would be the exact same. But it looks nice.
Yeah, seems to like look good when you're zoomed out as well as when you're very close in too.
Yep, and all these arrows are actually entities right now, so they're not all individual game objects. They're stuck in the ground.
So yeah, how do the arrows like projectiles how is that all calculated? Is that like I'm guessing like do they have a specific target that they're going to hit, or do they kind of like fire off in a specific direction? And if they happen to hit a unit, it'll only inflict damage then. So like how does that kind of work?
All of the ranged units have a stat called accuracy. And based on that, whenever, make me remember all my function names.
Yeah, diving back into code that you wrote a year and a half ago or something.
Yeah, I know. All this says like initial commit 4 weeks ago, but that's just when I pushed it to the
public repo. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but all of these Each individual unit has like an attack timer, and when that's done, it will trigger an animation. There's actually a slight delay so that it triggers the animation, and then a little bit later it actually does the shooting. But based on their accuracy, all of these individual archers that are shooting at this squad are assigned at random one of the units in this squad.
Mhm.
And the moment the arrow is fired, it's already determined if it's going to hit or not.
Okay.
So all of these, and I'll bring in some of my archers so you can see a ranged attack. Based on their accuracy, which these guys, I'll move them out of the way. These archers have an accuracy of 50. So let me form them up. And the moment they are ready to shoot, they are all just firing at a random goblin here in this formation. So you'll see the arrows kind of spread out and hit random targets.
Yeah.
If it falls within that like 50% chance to hit, once it hits the target, the arrow is destroyed. If it misses, the arrow is then placed in the ground near the target, and I just strip off the actual like damage dealing component. So none of these arrows that land in the ground do any real damage.
It's just, a renderer basically.
I'm going to grab the cat real quick. He's mad because I shut the door.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's kind of a cool way to handle projectiles. I think it makes sense. It seems like the arrows go pretty quickly where it wouldn't make sense to kind of dodge them. I was just
a cat sighting.
Nice. It's like we have Danny's cat show up on the show sometimes. So
yeah, I've got a split keyboard here to so I'm not hunched over like a total shrimp all the time, and he will sit just in the middle of my split keyboard, just trying to be helpful.
I was just curious. So it seems like the arrows are going pretty quickly. So like it wouldn't really look weird if you kind of like tried to dodge the arrows. Like as soon as the arrows fire, like if you happen to like move your group off to the side, like it wouldn't like make the arrows take like a really weird trajectory, right? Like it seems like they go pretty quick, right?
No, it's actually in slow motion right now, and that's something that people have asked for, if they could like dodge incoming volleys, and I have unfortunately had to say no to that because you just gotta prioritize the most important things in game dev. And like, yes, it would be a cool mechanic if you could dodge incoming volleys. However, I got the game out in under 2 years. So a lot of that is looking at things that would be cool and saying like, yes, that is a cool idea, but I'm not going to do that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm just kicking everyone out of the way. I do have mass on the units, so he's probably going to get stuck on the cav. This is something that I still got to improve. It's okay, but it's not perfect. Whereas like the unit pathfinding, still working on that, but it's in at least a decent state where it'll push other units out of the way if they're small.
It's cool. The one big guy going up against the whole group there.
Mm-hmm. And if you're real close, it'll shake the camera. But if you're farther away, it does a little shake. But then if you're real far, it doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
Again, this is just like booting up like AAA games, seeing how they do it, being like, okay, it feels like that. So that's how I want to try to recreate it. But yeah, on the arrows, all the ones left in the ground are ones that just missed their mark. And I think it makes a nice little Carnage type of feel.
Yeah. I mean, it makes it look like, a battle took place there.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you for like the interesting questions, keeping them coming.
Yeah, of course. And I did see someone ask this. This is something that I wanted to ask myself, but um, what is kind of like the maximum number of like, have you like done some like crazy stress testing of like how many units have been participating in a battle that's like um, ended up working pretty well?
I haven't. I used to actually have battles capped at 8 units, but because I got a little bit better at writing ECS code, I was able to change it. We can actually probably just do a live stress test here.
Let's do it. Let's run it.
See what it runs like. And this is an editor. It runs about twice as fast in builds, which is pretty crazy. But like I set up this unit count thing here again because players asked for it. So if we have maybe, I don't know, 100 goblins. Actually, someone did something real funny with the what was it? I think it was with these chimeras. Just a huge, massive force of these. We can fight them against, I don't know, tons of skeletons. Actually, these guys are anti-large, so it might be somewhat of a fair fight. So this is like 1,000 units right here. 100 times 10. Let me turn on FPS. So it's running at like 20 FPS in editor. That would give me about 40 FPS in game.
Still definitely playable.
Yep. So yeah, it does. ECS is pretty crazy. It does hold up well.
What has been? Has there been any like particular performance difficulties that you have had, or is there anything right now that's kind of like your main performance bottleneck?
In terms of performance, it's definitely graphics. Like I haven't set up LODs yet. Yeah, this is without like any LODs for anything. I know I could definitely increase performance if I did that. Again, there's just like, 100 different units, and there's 3 individual models for each unit type. So like if I look at these skeletons, you see some have helmets, some have armor, some have, are kind of corpsey looking like these guys.
Right.
So unfortunately, like just setting up LODs for all of them hasn't happened yet.
Right. Maybe it's just kind of it's a lot of busy work.
Yeah. For, it would be a slight improvement, but because it runs so well currently.
For like, what the actual like game is when you're not like trying to stress test it, I guess.
Yeah. Other performance bottlenecks. I used to have real big performance dips once units got into combat and they were searching for targets, but that no longer happens. I went through and cleaned up that script that I showed earlier for finding targets, so it's much better now. I think they would just like continually keep searching if none were in range. But yeah, nothing too bad performance wise. Maybe if I do, a lot of it's, ECS is just amazing. So anything performance related is going to be graphics. Right. So I added like a whole bunch of new things like render scaling and texture quality, anti-aliasing, bloom, ambient occlusion that you can turn on and off. I've got some people playing the game on laptops without graphics cards. Like one of my users was like, hey, I'd love to play the game, but unfortunately the battle scenes run at like 3 FPS. And now the battle scenes run at like 15 to 20 FPS for him without
Okay.
a graphics card. So I'd say it's, you know, it's one of those things where it's good enough. I'm sure there are still some things that I could do to improve it, but it's pretty good right now. I think the more important things are like balance related or bug fixing that kind of have priorities at the moment.
Yeah, totally hear you on that.
So yeah, sorry, I don't have a great answer to that question.
No, that's all good. I know you had mentioned to me earlier that you were doing some kind of like hardware detection to kind of like auto populate some of the graphic settings.
Yep. So I've got right here, if you go into graphics settings, I'm on, you can reset to what's suggested. So right now I'm on ultra because I've got a 3080, but it will detect what, what is this script? Graphics. I guess under graphics panel. Auto configure graphics. Detect hardware tier. So I'm taking a look. I can look at the system info and look at their graphics memory size. And if they're using, you know, very, very low end GPU, or if they're using any sort of like just
Like
laptop
integrated graphics. Yeah.
Yes. So if it's any of those, their hardware tier is
funny.
set to low.
GPU contains Intel HD, Intel UHD.
Yeah.
I
But
mean,
like, hey, look, people want to play on older machines. Like I grew up playing Minecraft at like 5 FPS because I was just using my parents' like old garbage laptop that they got probably from Best Buy.
Some, like Windows Vista something.
Exactly. So like I can relate. So definitely anything you can do from an indie dev standpoint to allow more people to play the game is worth it.
I know that's what the devs of what was that game? Was it called BattleBit?
Oh, that, yeah, I remember that game.
Didn't they call it like BattleBit Remastered?
Remastered, yeah.
Kind of had that like blocky style that was like it kind of had like the super like low fidelity blocky style, but it was also like a very like hardcore Battlefield-esque shooter type game.
Yeah. So like, hey, if people want to play it, I want to try to make it available for them, and ECS has definitely made that possible.
Yeah, that's awesome. Have there been any like major frustrations with using and or learning / implementing ECS in this project?
Yes. Oh my God. The logs from crashes are not as detailed as you might expect. For instance, actually, these are bad examples. So are these. I'm not getting any errors right now. But
you fixed all the bugs already.
Yeah, I know, it's because I fixed all the bugs. But sometimes it'll just be like a, you know, what's the common one that it throws? Like memory not found exception. And those are real nasty because they just hard crash to desktop. So a lot of that got solved in this entity watcher, which I know this isn't the best way to do it, but completing all the track jobs. I'm calling this after every specific anything that I do to update or remove whenever I'm like removing components.
Or doing structural changes, basically.
Yes. So after each one, I'm completing all track jobs before doing the next one, which does hurt performance a little bit, but it wildly improves the stability. So I am more than willing to admit that some things I'm doing here are not best practices. But if, you know, I've got a bug reporting thing set up, and if there's like, you know, a few hundred people playing the game and I get no bug reports of crashes, it's kind of cool.
Yeah. Did you want to show off your bug reporter stuff? I know you were showing me that the other day, and it seemed like you were pretty happy with that.
Yeah, this has been huge. I've got this report a bug button in a bunch of different places, but we can just say, you know, test for Turbo. Me. You can add your Discord username. You can also submit an anonymous report that blocks your Steam name from going through if you wanted. But I can submit that. It'll spin for a second while it's contacting with Discord. And then usually it only takes a half second. But maybe because I'm streaming right now, my bandwidth is kind of capped. Yeah. And then, oh, you know what? I don't think I added a title. How's that? Or steps to reproduce. Test. Oh no. Submit. Let's try that again.
I think you got a bug with your report a bug feature.
I do have a bug. Curl error. Stream one was not closed. Protocol error. Well, I guess that's probably not getting reported then. Yeah, I think it's mad because I'm streaming right now and my bandwidth is capped out.
Fair enough.
But normally, I'll get in my Discord, which I can bring over here and share. It goes straight to this report a bug channel. And whenever anyone has an issue, like I got one issue in the past 6 hours, so Battlefield isn't being displayed correctly. It shows the Steam user and their username. So if they're in the Discord, I can ping them when I fix it. Just LOL. Nope. Looks like they haven't joined the Discord, but it contains their log files. So I can download this. Whoops. Actually, I'm not going to show that because I don't know what I have open in my downloads right now. But I can open the log files and look at them directly and figure out what issue the player had. So that has been super cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's seems extremely valuable. I know. I think you were about to tell me a story the other day about some of the wacky bug reports that you've gotten. Has there been anything particular crazy that you've seen? Because I know you were saying that it was pretty wild. Like you felt like your game was like pretty rock solid and well tested. Because I know you had your demo up for quite some time, so you're feeling pretty confident with things. But you know, even then when you released it into the wild, you know, people still found a lot of things. So do you have any crazy stories from going into launch?
Yes. So normally when you submit a bug, that's what happens. The little view report thing pops up, and then it links you directly to Discord, to the specific bug that you created. So just this rambling that I did, there's my Steam username and my log files if I wanted to look at that. But in terms of bug reports, I'm going to see if I can actually pull one up here on another monitor because I don't want to dock someone too hard. Sometimes I will get bug reports from a pirated version of my game, which is frustrating because I have fixed the bugs. So if whoever pirated the game could go back through and upload like a more recent build, I would really appreciate that.
I've heard stories of indie devs who basically like uploaded their own games to pirated sites, and then like, you know, they would like include little things in there of like, you know, hey, like, you know, I'm just, you know, one dude, like you'd be super cool, like, you know, thanks for playing my game, but it'd be super cool if you paid for it, kind of thing. You know, or you could also update it, I guess, if you wanted to fix the bugs too.
Yeah, that's definitely a good idea. As much as I say, like, please, please, please don't pirate my game, I realize that like 99% of the people that do were never going to buy it in the first place. So it doesn't really bother me too much.
Although I will say I have heard, and it's like it's hard to find data on these kinds of things, but I have heard that with PC gamers that there is a fairly significant and again, I don't know percentage wise where if it's 1%, 10%, how much that do pirate it and then end up going on to purchase it.
Yeah, I definitely think that that happens more often than not. So I try not to, what's the thing? To control the things that I can, accept the things that I can't, that sort of thing. So I'm not too upset about it. Crud, I can't find it, but I will look for it real quick. I don't want to make the stream too uninteresting, but I had some user who in the keybinds had gone through and they had bound their escape key to close settings, so they couldn't reopen their settings to unbind the escape key. So luckily I was actually able to help them fix it by just telling them to delete their overrides file so that it reset everything to default.
Did you like then go in and add a check? You're like, okay, like, we want to add in key rebinds, but like maybe add in a couple guardrails here and there.
Oh, I found it. Here we go. I'll pull this up real quick. Yeah, so this is the guy, the poor Korean guy. It's hard to play the game because the settings about. Oh, he changed it to mouse click.
Oh my god!
So this is just him trying to reset, and it just mouse clicking away. So I think I said like I'm so sorry. I've ever seen. So yeah, clearing the game completely and clearing the keybinds.json solved it. Okay, so good for him. This was like a day after launch, and I'm just being hit with this.
That's so amazing.
Yep.
Because that button is changed to mouse click. Oh boy.
Like you can try to do everything for players, but sometimes it is what it is.
Did you end up adding in some kind of a check to make sure people don't do anything to?
No, because there's 100,000 people that have played the game. It's happened to one guy. So
and then I guess if it happens to two, then you can just copy paste the solution.
Yes, and if it happens to at that point, it's natural selection. So I'm real sorry. But yeah, there's like a million things that get reported as bugs, and I'm going through and trying to balance things as quickly as possible and add new features. So if I can do something that affects like 99% of the player base, I kind of prioritize that over the one edge case of the goofball setting the settings menu to his mouse click, which is still worth fixing, but not today. Maybe in the future. I will keep that in the back of my mind though in the future.
Go towards the lower end of the to-do list.
Yeah.
I'll pull up this comment from Mr. Awesome here from a little bit ago. Is there anything that you would have done differently this says, what would you have done differently that you don't want to change now? Like maybe
I know I spoke about this real briefly with you the other day, but the animation system, unfortunately, is really unwieldy. I'm not going to say what I'm using right now for animations because I don't have anything super positive to say other than the fact that it works. I would definitely use a different animation solution for the next project.
Fair enough.
I actually reached out to the dev and was like, hey, my game released did real well, so I just want to say thank you for making this. And he didn't even respond to that. I think he's completely abandoned the project.
Dang, that's too bad.
Yeah.
We were talking a little bit about some of the frustrations with like using dots in ECS. Is there anything else that comes to mind at all?
Not really. I feel like the learning curve for dots, it's a little steep at the start, but once you get the hang of it, it's just kind of copying and pasting the same systems over and over again with just slight changes for what you need it to do.
Right.
So the initial learning was a little steep, but it's definitely doable. And I think pretty much anyone can learn it if I can.
And let me see what else, if there was anything. And yeah, I guess I know you're kind of continuing to support the game. Is there anything else that you want to talk about as far as like new or upcoming features that you're working on?
Not particularly. I'm working on spells right now, which are kind of fun. Eventually I would like to get to multiplayer. So I think I'm going to do like a spell and mages update first, then add 2 new factions. Then after that, I'll start working on multiplayer. So I know that will be a heavy lift, but we'll get it done.
What is kind of the I guess like what is all involved in spells? Is it just kind of like a new type of attack, or like what's what kind of some like the new / interesting things, if you want to say? I don't know how much you've talked about it. Yeah.
No, I definitely can. I've have like a few different types of spells, whether they're direct damage, like a little lightning strike, or whether they're a buff or a debuff, such as I got like a little wind one.
Okay, so this is not like something that's like generated by a unit. It's like something that like it looks like you're clicking something kind of in the lower left that you're like placing out on the battlefield almost.
Yeah, so I've got like 3 different ways to cast them, whether it's clicking or all of these are bound to hotkeys right now. It's like 7, 8, and 9. Or you can also hold control to bring up the little quick cast. So just giving players like a few different options of how they want to go about it. There we go. But yes, it will actually be on. There will be mage units as well that will function similar to the ranged ones, where they will have their own spells that they can cast. So a mix of player casting and unit casting. So that'll be fun. That'll be an interesting. I'm still kind of working through how I want to display the UI for mage units casting spells. So a lot of different directions I can go.
Right, because it's like because like you kind of, I guess, need some way, because it looks like the spells are kind of like physically disconnected from where they're like, I guess, could be like being generated from. So I guess you kind of want some way to say, you know, like this spell is kind of coming from this squad.
Yes. So right now I've only got it set up for the player. I got to set it up for the squads and give them casting ranges and whatnot. But I'll figure that out.
Heck yeah. I know you're still a ways out from multiplayer, but are you likely going to be doing like netcode for entities then?
Yes, I think I will. My initial plan is to just make it peer-to-peer and basically have one player as the host that's doing everything and everything simulated on his end. And then the other player is just passing forward like commands. So I think what I'll do is have like some sort of like basically dummy entity that doesn't actually do anything on the other player's end, and having it all the actual simulation just happen on the host. But if the other player wants to do something like select a squad and move it, then that little move command gets translated the same way the entity's move commands are communicated.
Gotcha. Have you done much networking stuff in the past? I see Bonte was asking about that a little bit here.
Yeah, at an old job, I did a good bit of netcode for game objects. So I'm more than aware of how much of a task it's going to be, but you know, it'll get done. It's not the difficulty doesn't scare me. I just know it's gonna take some time.
Yeah. And I kind of saw like on your roadmap, you know, you say multiplayer is coming when it's ready, kind of thing. So
Yeah, like I'm definitely gonna be working on it, but I'm not gonna promise a date. It'll just get done as fast as it can.
yeah. And so it is going to be like actual like real time battles, right? Where it's like kind of
Correct.
similar to what you're doing right now, but it's just like, you know, head to head, you're playing against like one of your buddies, right?
Yep. And I've got the command system all queued up for the entities where they are, I'm sorry, the enemies where they actually use the same logic as the player. So I know instead of, I've got one script, it's called Enemy General. So this will go through and command. This will actually go through all the different enemies, and you know, I've got some different conditions for setting them as aggressive or passive if they've got like artillery, and it basically can. This is like a fake player that's just controlling the whole enemy force and deciding what to do. Yeah. So instead of a fake player, it's going to be a real player. So it will work. It will just be a bit of work.
Awesome. Is there any other things that we hadn't talked about that you wanted to get into at all?
No, I think we covered a good little bit of ECS and a lot of Unity game dev stuff that's not super ECS related. So hopefully your viewers still found that bit interesting as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely all related, you know, even though, you know, even if you are making a primarily ECS game, which, you know, this is obviously all the gameplay is ECS, you know, you're doing a lot of non ECS stuff still. And I think it's, you know, important to make sure you have a good way to integrate that. And obviously, you know, like you're showing all this stuff right now, like, you know, having good settings. And I think all that stuff is like really important to a good player experience that just leads to, you know, having a successful game. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Well, yeah, I guess we can wrap this up. By the way, I think your camera has been frozen for a little bit here, but oh, you're back.
Yeah, I think my internet bandwidth was capped out there a bit.
Oh, gotcha. All right. Well, yeah, we can wrap this up now. So yeah, thanks everybody for joining us here today. Thank you, TJ, for showing us off your project. Once again, I think it's super cool that you have your whole source code available. Oh, by the way, I think Bonte was asking about where do you know where in the repo that stuff related to the Discord bug reporting is? I think you wanted to check that out.
Oh, you know what? That is actually not in the repo because I have some that is a I have some like third party stuff involved, but okay. If he DMs me on Discord, I'll give him the code for that.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. I guess, yeah, Bonte, just hit him up then. But yeah, thank you so much, TJ, for joining us here today. Once again, major congratulations on the success of Tabletop Tavern. Such a fun game, and been really cool to see this whole journey, you know, of, you know, just seeing little videos of these little skirmishes, you know, on social media for the past few years, and seeing this grow into like a, you know, a full, really cool game. And then, you know, seeing obviously the success with it and everything. So it's been really cool to see. So,
well, I appreciate that. I've been a Patreon of the Hot Path show, I think, since inception. So I'm not saying that this is what happens when you're a Patreon, but you know, no promises.
I'm gonna have to clip that one out.
Go right in. No, but seriously, like, thank you for all the content on ECS. I definitely wouldn't have gotten here without it.
Well, hey, I'm glad it's been helpful, and yeah, hopefully I'll be able to make a nice, successful game of my own here, and maybe you'll be interviewing me on your stream or something sometime soon.
All right, let's bookmark it. Let's set a
Hell
date.
yeah. Hell yeah. All right, dude. Thank you so much. And to everybody else, once again, thanks for joining us and have a great weekend.
Thank
See
you
you later, everybody.